You will not believe what just went down in the world of Huntsville drama. Picture this quiet room, casual conversation, and then suddenly, boom, Marlene drops a line so sharp, you can almost hear the glass shatter. This wasn't just a little shade, it was a full eclipse, and right in the middle of it all, Arrione Curry. But if you think this was just a petty back and forth, wait until you hear how Martell himself stepped into the storm, admitting something so jaw-dropping. It's about to flip the table on everything you thought you knew. The air between Marlene and Arrione has never exactly been warm, but this moment turned a simmer into a rolling boil. It all started with a subtle comment, one of those remarks that sounds innocent at first, until you catch the tone, the glance, the pause. Marlene didn't even raise her voice. She didn't need to. The power was in the delivery, the precision. She knew exactly where to aim, and it landed. People nearby froze, trying to process whether she actually said what they thought she said. Arrione, of course, is no stranger to whispers. Her name has been tossed into more conversations than she can count, many of them tied to Martell, and the complicated, tangled history they share. But what made Marlene's shade so devastating was that it wasn't just about Arrione's past, it was about the present. And the way she delivered it. That made it personal. For a moment, Arrione seemed to collect herself, the flicker of a smirk crossing her face, like she was determined not to give Marlene the satisfaction of a reaction. But you could see it, the flash in her eyes, the quick tightening of her jaw. That was the first sign this wasn't going to blow over quietly now. Here's where it gets even wilder. While the dust from Marlene's comment was still settling, Martell found himself in the middle of a conversation that turned into an unexpected confession. It started casually, but quickly drifted into a place where his guard seemed to slip. And then, as if it were no big deal, he admitted he had been paying some of Arrion's bills. The room went silent. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. There was no elaborate justification, no defensive tone, just a matter-of-fact acknowledgement. You could almost hear the collective gasp of everyone within earshot. This wasn't a rumor being tossed around in whispers anymore. This was straight from Martell's own lips. The implications hit fast. Some saw it as loyalty, maybe even a sense of responsibility. Others saw it as proof that certain ties between Martell and Arrione were far from severed. And for Marlene, you can bet that confession was like gasoline on a fire she had already lit. Because if she wanted to make a point about where Martell's priorities were or weren't, this was the perfect opening. Behind the scenes, you could feel the ripple effect. Friends started asking each other, "Did you hear that?" Phone screens lit up with texts, eyebrows raised in disbelief. Every little detail was being replayed, from the exact words Martell used to the slight shrug he gave when he said them. And let's talk about the tension between these three. Marlene has long been seen as protective when it comes to Martell, the kind of mother who doesn't hold back when she thinks someone might be steering her son off course. Arrione, on the other hand, has built her own narrative, a mix of defiance, self-assurance, and refusal to be boxed in by anyone else's opinion. Martell, he's caught in the crossfire, balancing his own choices with the scrutiny that follows them. It can be both a bridge and a chain. And while Martell spoke, his face unwavering, it became clear that he didn't view it as scandalous. Maybe he even saw it as a mark of responsibility, a gesture that proved he took care of those who had been in his life. But as his words hung in the air, Marlene's earlier shade hung in the air like perfume that refuses to fade. A reminder that she had set the stage for this entire exchange, and whether she intended to or not. Her words now seemed like the prelude to his confession, the spark that lit the fuse. And that's what made the moment so potent, because it wasn't just about what was said, it was about how it all connected. How the undercurrents between these players suddenly surfaced in a way that no one could ignore. And you could see it in their body language, the subtle tightening of shoulders, the eyes that darted but didn't meet, the little pauses before speaking, as if everyone was measuring every word now. Because once something like this is out there, you can't take it back. And that's the beauty and the brutality of a moment like this. It lives on, replayed, dissected, interpreted 100 different ways. And in the days that followed, the conversations didn't slow down, they spread. From whispered exchanges to open debates, from speculation to certainty, and through it all, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a throwaway moment in reality TV drama. It was a crystallization of the messy, complicated ties that bind people long after the romance fades. Ties made of loyalty, resentment, history, and yes, sometimes, money. And whether you see Martell's admission as generosity or as a red flag, There's no denying that it revealed something raw about him. You could see how differently others were processing them. The flicker in their eyes, the subtle tightening of a jaw, the sideways glance that said more than words ever could, because, whether or not Martell meant for it to be, his admission was now part of a larger story. A story that Marlene had just fueled with her earlier shade. And that's what made this moment so electric. It was layered, each revelation stacking on top of the other, creating a narrative that was impossible to ignore, and the more you replayed it in your head, the more you saw the choreography, intentional or not. Marlene's linso. When Marlene throws shade, it's not just idle chatter, it's a message. And when that shade lands in the same conversation as Martell's confession about paying Arrion's bills, that message gets amplified into a headline moment. It forces everyone to ask, why is he still doing this? What does it say about where his loyalties lie? And most importantly, what does it mean for the already strained dynamics around him? Some insiders claim Marlene's remark was premeditated, that she waited for the perfect moment to drop it, knowing the effect it would have. Others think it was spur of a moment, honesty, the kind of thing you say when you're tired of holding back. Either way, the impact was undeniable. Arrione, for her part, didn't retreat. She's known for standing her ground, for keeping her composure even when the conversation gets heated. But beneath that calm exterior, you can imagine the calculations being made, the decision of whether to respond now or later, whether to let the words fade or turn them into fuel for her own response. Martell's admission lingers in the air, a reminder that his connection to Arrione is not as distant as some might have believed. It's the kind of revelation that invites endless speculation about his motives, about the history they share, and about the possibility that this chapter is far from closed. And here's where it gets truly intriguing. Was Martell trying to be transparent, or was this a slip? Was he making a point, or did he just underestimate how explosive his words would be? Those questions have no easy answer, and maybe that's the point. The uncertainty keeps the story alive, keeps people talking, keeps every small detail under a microscope. Marlene, meanwhile, hasn't exactly walked back her words. If anything, the silence that followed has been its own kind of statement. She doesn't need to repeat herself. She knows the message landed. And that, perhaps, is the real power here, the ability to drop one remark and let the world do the rest. The real question now is what happens next. Does Arrione respond directly, calling out Marlene or Martell for the parts they've played in this drama? Does Martell double down, explaining why he's been covering those bills? Or will there be an attempt to smooth things over before the tension becomes completely unmanageable? What we do know is that moments like this have a way of shaping relationships. For years to come, they become reference point stories that get retold, analyzed, exaggerated, and immortalized in the unofficial history of a friend group or a family circle. And in this case, the mix of shade, confession, and unspoken emotion has created a perfect storm. One thing is certain, you can't put this genie back in the bottle. The words are out there, the looks have been exchanged, and the truth, whatever version of it you believe, has been spoken. And as much as everyone might try to move forward, you know this is going to come back around. Because in this world, nothing stays buried for long. So the next time Marlene and Arrione find themselves in the same room, all eyes will be watching. Will there be icy politeness? A fiery exchange? Or will both women play it cool, letting the tension simmer just beneath the surface? And what about Martell? Will he stand by his admission, or try to reframe it as something harmless? The drama is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started. And if you think this was the peak, well, just wait. Because with these personalities, every high has a higher, every twist has another turn, and every revelation is just a setup for the next one. If you were in Marlene's shoes, would you have said it? If you were Arrione, would you let it slide? And if you were Martell, would you keep paying those bills? Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like button if you're hooked on the twists in this story. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because we need to hear every take. And subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this ongoing saga. 'Cause trust me, the best, or the messiest, is still to come.